Maybe if you were more like your sister. Mom sighed, her voice light, almost tender, like she didn't realize she just punched a hole through my chest. She was sitting at the kitchen table, dressed in her soft blue cardigan, scrolling through her phone. Her face glowed in the screen light, smiling, beaming even, as if Leah's success was oxygen and she couldn't breathe enough of it. She got the position, you know, Mom said, looking up for the first time. Regional Marketing Director. They said she was brilliant in the interviews. She just sent me a photo from her office. Look at that view. She turned her phone toward me. There was Leah. Perfect posture, polished smile. The San Francisco skyline glittering behind her like an expensive secret. She's really thriving, Mom murmured, eyes soft. You could learn a thing or two from her. It was such a small sentence. Such an ordinary, motherly thing to say. But it settled deep in my stomach like swallowed glass. I forced a smile. Yeah, she's doing amazing. I just wish you'd, I don't know, push yourself a bit more, Mom continued, sighing. You're so smart, but you never seem to follow through. Leah, she goes after what she wants. You have that same potential, honey, you just don't live up to it, I finished for her. Mom's lips pressed together, not denying it. I looked away, pretending to be fascinated by the chipped edge of the countertop. I'm happy for her, Mom. Really. But I wasn't. Not tonight. Because I could see how Mom's eyes sparkled when she said Leah's name. How her voice softened. That gentle warmth, one I hadn't felt directed at me in years. It used to hurt in waves. Now it just left a quiet, cold ache. When I went upstairs to my old room, I felt like I was walking through someone else's life. The trophies still lined the shelves, relics from a girl who used to try harder. The desk was cluttered with books from college, half-read, bookmarked with folded napkins and receipts. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the faint cracks in the ceiling. The house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge downstairs and the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Sleep didn't come easily anymore. Around midnight, I gave up and reached for my phone. I opened Instagram mostly out of habit and typed in Leah's name. Her latest post glowed on the screen. First day in my dream role. Feeling grateful, humbled and ready for the challenge. The photo showed her at a rooftop party, glass of champagne in hand, a soft sunset blurring the city behind her. She looked radiant. The comments were full of admiration. You deserve this. So proud of you. Boss energy. I was halfway through when something made me pause. There was a man standing behind her in one of the group photos, partially blurred but familiar. The shape of his jaw. The way he tilted his head when he smiled. My thumb trembled as I zoomed in. No, it couldn't be. But it was. Daniel. My ex. The breath left my lungs. He was supposed to be in Chicago, or at least that's what I thought. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. Not since the breakup that left me hollow. And yet there he was, standing behind my sister, smiling like he belonged there. I scrolled faster, my heart pounding harder with each image. Then I found it. A tagged photo from one of Leah's coworkers. Leah and Daniel standing close together, laughing. Her hand rested casually on his arm. Her body angled toward him. His eyes, those eyes that once made me believe in forever, were on her. I stared at the screen until it blurred. My chest tightened. My skin felt too small. No, it had to be a coincidence. Maybe he'd been invited by someone else. Maybe they'd just run into each other. But that small, cruel voice in my head whispered, "You've seen this before." And I had. I remembered the family dinners where Leah would tease him about his guitar playing, the little smiles they'd share across the table, the way he'd text late at night, just saying hi. And when I'd asked who he'd been messaging earlier, he'd said, "Just Leah, about your birthday plans." Back then I'd brushed it off, because she was my sister, and he was the man I loved. What reason did I have not to trust them? I could almost hear Leah's laugh echoing in my head, that perfect melodic sound that always made her seem more alive than the rest of us. I wanted to throw my phone, but instead I sat frozen, scrolling through every comment, every photo, every digital breadcrumb of their connection. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal or how easily it made sense. At 2:14 a.m. I texted her. "Hey, congrats on the new job. We should catch up soon." It sounded casual, safe, like a sister reaching out. Her reply came fast. "Thanks. Totally. Been meaning to call you. Things have been crazy lately. Miss you XX. Miss you. I stared at those two words until they started to lose meaning. Because how do you miss someone when you're sleeping beside the ghost of everything they lost? I set my phone on the nightstand and lay back. The shadows of the room stretched long across the walls. I remembered the night Daniel told me he needed space. I'd cried until dawn, clutching his sweatshirt like it might explain something. He'd promised there wasn't anyone else. That it wasn't me, it was timing, stress, distance. And like an idiot I believed him. Now everything snapped into place with brutal clarity. Maybe it wasn't timing. Maybe it was her. A soft, shaking breath escaped me. The ceiling above blurred again, this time with tears. The betrayal hadn't even been confirmed yet, but I felt it in my bones, the same way animals feel storms before they break. Still, I needed proof. Real proof. So I opened my laptop and searched Daniel's name. His social accounts were private, but his LinkedIn wasn't. And there it was, his latest update. Thrilled to announce I've joined Ember and Slate Marketing in San Francisco. The same company Leah had just posted about. My heart dropped. My hands went cold. They weren't just reconnecting. They were working together. That wasn't a coincidence. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, and a hollow laugh slipped from my throat, quiet, bitter, and strangled all at once. It was almost poetic. Leah had taken everything I'd wanted, everything I'd tried to build, and turned it into her reflection. Mom's words from earlier floated back into my mind, cruel and mocking. Maybe if you were more like your sister. I pressed my palms against my eyes, fighting the urge to scream. If being like Leah meant stealing, lying, smiling through betrayal, then maybe Mom was right. Maybe I wasn't like her. And maybe that was the only good thing left about me. The next morning I woke up to sunlight cutting through the blinds, sharp and golden, like it was mocking me for barely sleeping. My eyes felt swollen. My head throbbed. The world outside was going about its usual rhythm. Birds in the trees, a car pulling out of a driveway, a neighbor laughing somewhere. But inside everything felt off-kilter, tilted just slightly out of place. I made coffee I couldn't taste and sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone again. Leah had posted another photo. A flat lay of her new office setup. Fresh flowers, an embossed notebook, a coffee mug that said Boss Energy. And in the reflection of the mug, so faint I almost missed it, was the corner of another desk. A hand holding a pen. That hand looked like Daniel's. It was enough. Enough to shatter denial into dust. But part of me still wanted to hear her say it. To confirm it. Because once you hear the truth out loud, there's no going back. I stared at my phone, debating whether to call her, when a familiar voice floated from the hallway. Mom. She was humming as she came in, her robe tied loosely, holding her mug of tea like a peace offering. You're up early, she said cheerfully. Want some breakfast? No thanks, I murmured, trying to sound normal. She sat down across from me, glancing at my phone. Oh, did you see Leah's latest post? That desk setup. She always had an eye for design. I forced a smile. Yeah, I saw. Mom sipped her tea, eyes bright with maternal pride. She called last night. Said her new team absolutely adores her. Oh, and guess who she ran into? Daniel. Remember him? The mug nearly slipped from my hand. What? Yes. Small world, right? Mom laughed. He's working at her company now. She said he's doing really well. It's so nice they can stay friends. I always thought he was such a lovely young man. My stomach turned. She told you that? Oh yes, Mom said, oblivious to my expression. Said it was comforting having a familiar face at work. Familiar face. Right. I nodded, my throat tight. That's nice. Mom smiled, satisfied, and went back to scrolling. By the time I made it to my car, I could barely breathe. The betrayal wasn't just between them anymore. It had bled into my home, my mother's voice, my memories. On the drive back to my apartment, every song on the radio sounded like an accusation. I turned it off and let the silence buzz in my ears. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I tried to work, but I couldn't focus. My brain replayed every moment from the past year, searching for signs I'd missed. There had been plenty. Daniel's sudden distance. Leah's quiet curiosity about him, always phrased as casual interest. Is he still at that job? He always seemed ambitious. You think you two will last? And I'd smiled through all of it, blind, trusting. By evening, my phone buzzed. Leah, thinking of you today. Hope you're okay. We should FaceTime soon, red heart. The audacity of that heart emoji nearly made me laugh. I typed back, sure. Maybe this weekend. But I didn't mean it. I was already planning something else. 2 nights later, I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, laptop open, credit card in hand. I stared at the screen of a travel booking site. My heart raced. 1 round-trip ticket to San Francisco. I hesitated. It was reckless, maybe even pathetic. But I needed to see it for myself, to stand in front of her and hear her lie to my face so I'd finally stop imagining it. I clicked purchase before I could talk myself out of it. The flight left Friday morning. San Francisco was colder than I expected. The fog clung to everything, damp and gray, swallowing the edges of the city. The cab ride from the airport felt like moving through a film. Blurry buildings, strangers' voices, a distant siren wailing somewhere. Leah's apartment was in a new high-rise downtown. I'd seen it in her photos. Floor-to-ceiling windows, white marble counters, art that looked too expensive to touch. I stood outside her door for a full minute before knocking. When she opened it, her face lit up in surprise. Oh my God! What are you doing here? Surprise, I said, forcing a smile. Thought I'd visit. She blinked, flustered but recovering fast. Wow, I wish you'd told me. I would have cleaned up. I stepped inside. It didn't need cleaning. It looked like a model home. Everything was perfectly arranged. Candles, plants, neutral tones. The faint scent of vanilla and white wine filled the air. My eyes scanned the room, every detail like a clue. 2 wine glasses on the counter. 1 half empty. Having someone over? I asked lightly. Leah hesitated, then smiled. Oh no, just a coworker earlier. We were celebrating closing a big deal. Her tone was easy, but there was a flicker in her eyes, a fraction of a second too long before she blinked. I didn't respond, just nodded and dropped my bag near the couch. She poured me tea, chattered about her job, her view, her coworkers. Her voice was the same as always, warm, melodic, rehearsed. But I kept thinking about that half-empty glass. About the faint smell of Daniel's cologne I thought I recognized. At one point she laughed and touched my arm. You should move here, you know. There are openings in my company. I could put in a good word. I almost asked, would that word come from your office or Daniel's? Instead I smiled. Maybe I'll think about it. She looked relieved. Maybe she thought I was still naive enough to be charmed. Later that night, when she went to shower, I wandered into the kitchen to get water. I opened the fridge and froze. There on the top shelf was a 6-pack of imported beer. The exact kind Daniel used to drink. Leah didn't even like beer. I took one out and stared at it, my reflection warped in the glass. The bathroom door opened behind me. What are you doing? She asked, voice too calm. I turned slowly. Daniel was here. Her face went pale. What? No, that's... Don't, I said softly. Don't lie to me. She stared at me for a long moment. Then her shoulders slumped. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. She swallowed hard, her voice cracking. We started talking again after he moved here. It just happened. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. It just happened? That's the best you can do. Tears filled her eyes. I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't mean to. I stepped closer. You knew what he meant to me. You knew everything. And you took him anyway. She flinched. I'm sorry. No, you're not, I whispered. You've been waiting for this your whole life. What are you talking about? All those years Mom comparing me to you, you loved it. You fed on it. Every time I failed, every time I stumbled, you shined a little brighter. And now you've taken the one thing you couldn't stand me having. Her mouth opened, but no words came. I trusted you, I said. My voice broke. You were my sister. The silence that followed was unbearable. The sound of the city outside, horns, sirens, laughter, felt like it belonged to another world. Finally, Leah whispered, I'm sorry. But the words fell flat. Something inside me shifted. Not anger anymore, something colder. Something final. I left that night. Didn't say goodbye. When I reached the street, the air hit me like ice. The fog had thickened, the city lights smeared into ghosts. I walked until I couldn't feel my hands. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Daniel. For a long time I didn't answer. Then, against every instinct, I did. Leah told me you came by, he said softly. I'm sorry you found out that way. I swallowed. Found out what exactly? That we're together, he said after a pause. I didn't want to lie to you. For a second everything went silent. Then I laughed. A broken, empty sound. Of course you didn't. He said my name once like it was supposed to mean something. But it didn't. I hung up before he could say another word. And in the silence that followed, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about losing them. It was about finally seeing who they really were, and who I'd been all along. The fool who believed love and loyalty were the same thing. I didn't fly home right away. I couldn't. The thought of walking back into that house, into Mom's endless praise of Leah, the golden child, the unbreakable one, made my stomach twist. I booked another night at a hotel near Union Square. The kind with soft white sheets and too much silence. Outside, the fog wrapped the city in a kind of muted gray. The kind that swallowed all noise and blurred the world into something half-dreamed. I sat by the window with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold, scrolling through old texts I should have deleted months ago. Daniel. I miss you even when we fight. Me, then stop doing things that make me fight you. Daniel, you're impossible. Me, then leave. He had. It felt almost absurd now how small those moments had seemed. How ordinary. You never realize which conversations are going to carve scars until they're long over. My phone buzzed. A message from Leah. I know you're angry, but can we talk? Please. I need you to understand. Understand? I wanted to throw my phone across the room. But instead I typed back 2 words. Not now. And for the first time in months I meant it. That evening I wandered through the city. The streets glittered with rain, reflections of neon lights bleeding across the pavement. People passed me in clusters, laughing, talking, living lives untouched by betrayal. I envied them. At a crosswalk, a street musician was playing an old guitar, his voice gravelly but soft. The song was about loss, about how some people leave but never really go away. I stood there for a long time, letting the sound thread through me until I couldn't tell if I was shivering from cold or emotion. I wanted to believe that time would dull it, that I'd wake up one morning and the ache would just fade. But deep down I knew better. Some wounds didn't close. They just became part of you. Back at the hotel I turned on the TV just for noise, but the world outside my head barely registered. I kept replaying that moment in Leah's kitchen, her face when I said Daniel's name. That flash of guilt so raw it almost made me pity her. Almost. But pity doesn't erase betrayal. At some point I fell asleep sitting up, the city lights flickering through the window like ghosts. When I woke, sunlight was streaming through the curtains. For a brief, fragile second I forgot everything. The room was calm, the air clean, my thoughts almost clear. Then my phone buzzed again. Mom. Leah told me what happened. Please don't be angry with her. Love doesn't always follow rules. You of all people should understand that. That last sentence hit harder than I expected. You of all people. What did that even mean? That I should be used to disappointment by now? That betrayal was a language I spoke fluently? I stared at her message for a long time before typing back. I'm not angry, Mom. I'm done. It was true. The anger had burned itself out, leaving something colder behind, resolve. Because if Leah and Daniel wanted to rewrite history, I could give them a new chapter to live in. And it wouldn't end the way they expected. Back home I moved through life on autopilot. Work, eat, sleep, or at least pretend to. Friends texted, asked if I was okay, but I never had the words. Then one afternoon, while scrolling absent-mindedly through my emails, something caught my eye. A newsletter from Ember and Slate, the company Leah and Daniel worked for. It featured our rising star, Leah Bennett, Senior Marketing Director. Senior? She'd only started there a few months ago. The article was full of corporate fluff, buzzwords, and fake humility. But one photo made me stop. Leah and Daniel side by side, presenting at a company meeting. He was smiling. She looked radiant. And in the background I noticed something strange. An open laptop screen showing a spreadsheet. Rows of data. Client accounts. Some labeled confidential. And just like that, a thought took root. An ugly, powerful thought. I wasn't sure when it stopped being a spark and became a plan. The next weekend Leah texted again. Hey. Flying home next month for Mom's birthday. You'll be there, right? I really like to see you. I almost said no. But then I realized something. If revenge was going to mean anything, it had to be up close. Personal. Yeah, I replied. I'll be there. Mom's birthday dinner was exactly what I expected. Expensive wine, overcooked roast, and Leah glowing like she was hosting a press conference instead of a family meal. Daniel wasn't there, thank God. But his absence only made her smug confidence stand out more. Mom was in rare form. Your sister's just been promoted again, she announced, raising her glass. She's leading a huge new campaign. Isn't that wonderful? I smiled tightly. That's great news. Leah looked uncomfortable, eyes flicking toward me. It's just a small step up, really. Mom laughed. You're too modest. Her boss said she's the most promising director they've had in years. Wow, I said softly. Good for you, Leah. She swallowed, forcing a smile. Thanks. We didn't speak much after that. But I watched her closely. The way she avoided eye contact, the way she sipped her wine too fast. When she excused herself to take a call, I followed her into the hallway. She turned startled. Oh, you okay? I just wanted to say congratulations, I said. Her relief was visible. Thanks. That means a lot. I stepped closer, my voice calm. You know, Mom told me something interesting once. She said success always comes with a price. I guess we just pay it in different currencies. Her brow furrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said with a faint smile. Just be careful what you build your happiness on. Sometimes the foundation gives out. I walked away before she could respond. That night when I got home, I opened my laptop. I still had access to the cloud link she'd shared years ago for a project we worked on together. A shared drive she apparently never deleted. And sitting there, buried among old files, were documents from her company. Reports, budgets, and client lists. She must have backed them up accidentally. Some of the emails attached were damaging, phrased badly, implying things that could look like misconduct if taken out of context. I read them once. Then again. Then I started to move pieces around, just enough to raise questions, not accusations. When I was done, I sent an anonymous message to the company's HR department, attaching a few concerns. Nothing obvious. Just breadcrumbs. It wasn't rage that guided my hand. It was clarity. She had crossed every line that mattered. And now she'd find out what it felt like to lose something she thought was hers. 3 weeks later, the fallout began. Mom called, her voice trembling. Leah's suspended from work, she said. They're investigating something about her emails, confidential leaks or whatever. She says it's a misunderstanding, but they're treating it like she committed a crime. I let out a small gasp, feigned shock. Oh my God, that's awful. Mom sniffled. She's devastated. She doesn't know who would do something like this. I'm sure it's just a mistake, I said softly. She's strong. She'll get through it. I hung up and stared out the window. The city outside was bathed in dusk, the kind of light that makes everything look clean, almost innocent. For the first time in a long while I felt calm. Not happy. Not vindicated. Just still. Leah had always taken what she wanted, believing the world would keep forgiving her. But some storms don't announce themselves. They just arrive. Quiet. Precise. Unstoppable. And when they pass, they leave nothing untouched. 2 months later, the email arrived. Not to my work address, not even to the one I use for family. It came to an old personal inbox I hadn't checked in weeks, one I only use for online orders and forgotten subscriptions. Subject line. You won. No name, no signature. Just those 2 words. I almost deleted it. But something about the simplicity, the eerie finality of it, made my hand freeze above the mouse. Clicked it open. There was no message inside, only a screenshot. Leah. Sitting alone in what looked like a cafe, her eyes red, her expression hollow. The kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones. Below it, a single line. Sometimes victory looks a lot like loneliness. I stared at it for a long time, pulse thudding in my throat. Was it Daniel? Was it her? Or was it just some twisted coincidence? A final echo of the chaos we'd created? Either way, I closed the laptop and pushed it away. The next week I finally went home. The house was the same. Down to the chipped blue paint on the porch and the smell of lemon polish that clung to the hallways. Mom's roses were blooming red, wild, untamed, crawling along the fence like they were trying to escape. She looked smaller when she opened the door. We hugged, but it felt restrained, like we were both afraid to hold on too tightly. "How have you been?" she asked softly. "Better," I said. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. Better is such a flexible word, it can stretch to mean anything. We ate dinner in silence. The ticking of the old wall clock filled the spaces where words should have been. Finally, Mom spoke. "Leah's staying with a friend. She's trying to get back on her feet." I nodded, stabbing my fork into the roast chicken. "That's good." "She's not doing well," Mom continued. "She says someone framed her, that there were files leaked from her account, but she swears she didn't send them." I said nothing. Mom sighed. "You two used to be so close. What happened to my girls?" I looked up. "Life happened." Her lips tightened, like she wanted to say more but couldn't find the right words. After dinner, I helped her clean up. The silence between us stretched, fragile and full of things neither of us wanted to name. As I was leaving, she touched my arm. "Please," she whispered, "don't give up on your sister. She's lost." I smiled faintly. "Aren't we all?" That night I couldn't sleep. The house creaked in familiar rhythms, the same sounds that used to comfort me as a child, now strangely suffocating. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the faint glow of the moon cutting a pale line across the room. For the first time since everything unraveled, I wondered if I'd gone too far. It had started as justice, righteous, clean, almost noble. But the aftermath was murkier than I'd imagined. There was no satisfaction, no triumph. Just quiet devastation, spreading like frost. I told myself Leah deserved it, that she'd taken from me first, that she'd broken something that couldn't be fixed. But in the stillness, doubt whispered otherwise. What if she hadn't leaked those files herself? What if someone else at the company had? What if I'd set fire to her life for nothing more than the illusion of balance? The thought lodged deep in my chest, sharp and unrelenting. A few days later, Leah showed up. It was late afternoon, the sun dipping low, painting everything gold. I was sitting on the porch steps when her car pulled into the driveway. A beat-up rental. Nothing like the sleek one she used to drive. When she stepped out, I barely recognized her. She'd lost weight, her hair pulled into a messy knot, eyes shadowed and tired. We stared at each other for a long time before she finally spoke. "Can we talk?" I nodded, gesturing toward the porch. She sat down beside me, clasping her hands together, knuckles white. "I don't even know where to start," she said. "Everything's gone. My job, my reputation. Daniel. He left when things got bad." I kept my voice steady. "I'm sorry." Her laugh was small, brittle. "No, you're not. And I don't blame you." That caught me off guard. She turned to look at me, eyes glassy but defiant. "You think I don't know it was you?" "The files, the emails, the company traced it back to an old shared drive. The one you had access to." I said nothing. "I didn't cheat to hurt you," she continued. "I didn't plan it. Just happened. He was there when I needed someone and I was weak. I know that's not an excuse. But I swear, I never meant to destroy you." I could feel my pulse in my throat. "You didn't destroy me," I said quietly. "You just reminded me how easily people can." She looked down, a single tear slipping down her cheek. I guess we both proved the same point. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us was thick. Not with hatred anymore, but something heavier. Grief, maybe. "I don't hate you, you know," she whispered. "I just wish we'd been kinder." That broke something in me. Because for the first time, she didn't sound like the golden sister or the competitor or the betrayer. She just sounded human. "I wish that too," I said softly. She stood after a while, brushing off her jeans. "I'm leaving town. Maybe for good. I need to start over somewhere no one knows me." I nodded. "Good luck, Leah." She hesitated. "You too." Then she walked to her car, got in and drove away. I sat there long after the sound of her engine faded, watching the last light slip behind the horizon. Weeks passed. Life found its rhythm again, slower, quieter, lonelier. Mom still called every Sunday. Sometimes she mentioned Leah, sometimes she didn't. We never spoke of Daniel again. One night I found myself walking along the waterfront, the air crisp and the city lights rippling across the dark water. A couple passed by laughing, holding hands. Their joy was effortless, untainted. And for a fleeting second I envied them. Then I let it go. Some people live whole lives chasing peace they once destroyed. Others learn to carry the ruins and call it strength. Maybe I'd never know which one I was. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. A new email. No subject line. No sender name. Just one attachment. A photo. Leah, smiling in front of a small cafe sign that read Second Chances. Her hair was shorter now, her eyes brighter. No message. No explanation. Just a quiet reminder that maybe, just maybe, the storm hadn't swallowed everything. I stood there, the sea wind biting at my cheeks, the city lights trembling in the distance. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I exhaled. A long, shuddering breath that carried the weight of every word never spoken, every wound never healed. Forgiveness wasn't absolution. It wasn't forgetting. It was simply stopping the fire from spreading further. I looked up at the night sky, where the stars glimmered faintly through the haze, and whispered into the wind, "Goodbye, Leah." Then I turned and walked home.